Think back to when you were in high school. Do you remember the girl that never ate lunch? The girl that ran her heart out in gym class? The girl that for some reason suddenly isolated herself from everyone? Well, I do. And that's because in all of these situations, I was that girl. When I was 13 years old, I developed an eating disorder called anorexia nervosa. According to the National Association of Anorexia and Associated Disorders, more than 30 million people in the U.S. currently suffer from an eating disorder. Eating disorders affect everyone of every nationality, every race, and every socioeconomic background. Eating disorders are dangerous and pose a serious problem to everyone that is affected by them. Today I would like to talk to you about eating disorders, specifically anorexia nervosa. I will briefly introduce you to the disorder, answer a few frequently asked questions, and introduce you to a means to talk with your loved ones that are currently going through an eating disorder. Before we can confront a problem, in our case anorexia, we first need to understand it. According to Eating Disorder Hope in 2018, anorexia is categorized as a psychological disorder that is defined by extremely low BMI, weight loss, illogical fear of weight gain, and body dysmorphia. In just a minute, I'm going to go over why someone develops anorexia, the signs and symptoms, and a couple of statistics. So why do we develop anorexia? Major life changes, childhood traumas, unrealistic beauty standards. But the real answer is, no matter how many reasons I list on this screen, I cannot encompass everyone with anorexia. And that's because there is no one-size-fits-all when it comes to an eating disorder. In addition to why anorexia affects us, we need to understand the signs and symptoms. By knowing the signs and symptoms, we can recognize them in our own friends and family members that are struggling with an eating disorder. Someone with anorexia is completely obsessed with calories and nutritional content. I remember when I personally had the disorder, I would eat less than 500 calories a day. They have lost their menstrual cycle for at least 3 consecutive months. They stay consistently cold, and they isolate themselves from friends, family, and social events. In addition to the signs and symptoms, I would like to go over some statistics with you. According to the Body Image Center in 2018, 15% of young women have disordered eating. That's like saying 3 out of the 20 girls in my little cousin Lacey's ballet class will have an eating disorder. According to Douglas Fields, whom holds a PhD in 2011, eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of any mental illness. This is due to suicide, sudden heart attack, multiple organ failure, and so many more consequences of prolonged malnutrition. According to Kelly Morris from Mirror Eating Disorder Help in 2018, anorexia is the 3rd most common chronic illness in adolescents. Now that you know a little bit about the characteristics of anorexia, let's move on to some commonly asked questions about the disorder. There are probably millions of questions surrounding anorexia, but I'm only going to answer a few. The first one I've been asked about a billion times: are you better once you eat? And the answer is no. For most of us, the disordered eating behavior is a way to deal with a deeper psychological issue. Until we completely learn to deal with this issue, we cannot get better. Another question I've been asked quite often: is it because you think you're not pretty? And no. For me, it was a way to deal with my life. I felt like my life was spinning out of control, and I just wanted to gain some control back. So I grabbed onto the only thing I could control, what I put in my body, and I obsessed over it. I feel like a question more people need to be asking is, what is recovery like? Recovery is hard, guys. Recovery is hard physically. Recovery is hard mentally. It's just hard. When I first started going through recovery, my body would force the nutrients out, and this is because I had developed gastrointestinal complications due to the anorexia. Mentally, I had to learn my worth again. I had to learn I was worthy of love. I had to learn I was worthy of good health, and I had to learn that I was worthy of recovery. In short, I had to completely learn to love myself again. Now that you know a little bit about my struggle with anorexia, let's move on to what you can do to help. Anorexia is hard, guys, but we don't have to go through it alone. It's important that you speak up to your loved one and let them know about your concern. This can mean a chance of recovery for them. First, you want to pick an appropriate time to talk to them. Make sure there's no distractions, and make sure you're alone, because this is hard enough for them to talk about without having ongoing listeners. Then you want to explain your concern to them. Let them know that you are truly concerned about their mental and physical health. And then your loved one will probably display denial at this point. They'll probably deny they have an eating disorder altogether and project all of their built-up anger right at you. But please don't take this to heart. They're just scared. Then you want to show your support for them. Let them know you're there for them, and let them know that you believe they can overcome this eating disorder with all of your heart. Now that you're ready to take your part in open lines of communication with your loved ones, let's review. I hope you realize the dangers of anorexia and use this knowledge to fight this potentially life-threatening disorder. Earlier you learned about anorexia, why it affects us, the signs and symptoms, and a couple of statistics. I also answered a few frequently asked questions based on my own personal experiences. Most importantly, I introduced you to a means to confront your loved ones that are struggling with an eating disorder to open lines of communication. I know we all think this can never happen to me and my family, but guys, it can. This can happen to any of us. It doesn't matter where we come from. I urge you to refuse to be ignorant of the dangers of eating disorders any longer. Use this knowledge to help a friend, a family member, maybe even a stranger. Anorexia is not going to disappear on its own. It's our job to fight against it. I know you would never allow someone to die from this disorder if you had the power to stop it, and you do. You could be the difference between death or recovery. Which will you choose?